Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our talk in our new series of the studies on human beings in conflicts, challenge for the conscious being, where we explore the uncharted territories of our unconscious to help each of us enhance our mental health, our spirituality, and our wholeness. I'm Fabrício Assunção from the Spiritual Society of Bournemouth. We are very pleased to have our speakers, Dr. Anahy Fonseca from the Spiritist Medical Association of Brazil, who is leading this study for us. Tonight's topic is about contemporary disease, and it is linked to Joanna's book, Integral Man, Chapter 5. During the study, I ask everyone to keep the microphone mute and only remove from mute when you speak to the group. This is so that external noise does not disturb the recording of other participants. Now, let me have a few words of introductions about Dr. Anahy Fonseca, for those that do not know Anahy. She is a psychiatrist and she's a founding member of the Department of Psychiatry and Spirituality at the Psychiatry Association of Rio Grande do Sul in Brazil. For some 30 years, she has been working psychotherapy. Just 1 second. More people getting in. Okay, trying to multitask. So for some 30 years, she has been working in psychotherapy, diagnosis, and research on the relationship between spirituality and mental health. She is also a Jungian analyst and a member of the Medical Spirits Association of Brazil, where she teaches Spiritist Psychology by Joanna de Angelis. Now it's my pleasure to hand it over to Anahy for her talk on contemporary disease. Over to you, Anahy.
Thank you, Fabrício. Hello, everyone. So it's so nice to be here with you again. And so today, as Fabrício said, I think, Fabrício, I should already share the PowerPoint. Have you? Let's see.
Yes, I have enabled you.
Okay. So let's see if it all works. Is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So as Fabrício said, we are in this meetings, we are discussing human beings in conflict, challenges for the conscious being, and it's a journey of self-discovery inspired by the spirit Joana de Angelis, psychographed by Divaldo Pereira Franco. And today we are going to be talking about contemporary diseases. And I've put here, I translated Fabrício as the integral human being because the book is not translated to English yet, but we have done so, Fabrício and some friends. And the translation for each meeting will be in the WhatsApp group. So everybody can read previously to this meeting. And I wanted to put here that this book, Divaldo Psychograph, in 1990, okay? So we are going to, you will be able to see, and for those who have already read the text, the chapter, that it's very, very up to date, very, very modern to our times. So whenever a spirit from higher spheres come in contact with us and send important information, it's always kind of out of space and time. When we say modern man, it's for us, you know, and it doesn't matter, it's from this period of time, let's say. In this period, that in spiritist knowledge, we know that we are transitioning. We have had this information, as in many other spiritualist fields of knowledge, that we are in humankind is going through a very special moment in terms of consciousness when we are having all together at the same time, spirits reincarnated here, a shift of consciousness. Okay, there are many coming to help us in this shift of consciousness, and many of us that are considered awakened for the spiritual reality of our being are here and have chosen to be here in this precious time for humanity. So let's see why. And especially, let's understand our conflicts and why, as Jonas say, it's a challenge for the conscious being, okay? I just wanted before, if people hasn't been able, they haven't been able to see the previous meeting, the first from this year, it's Fabricio has recorded, right? It's in the WhatsApp group and also in Burnout Society. You can look there. And there we discussed a little about Joseph Campbell's idea, the great mythologist, North American mythologist, in his book, The Inner Reaches of Outer Space from 1986. I brought some of the stuff that he wrote, that it's very important to make this bridge and for us to understand a little bit more what Joanne is proposing with these issues that we are debating today and discussing today. And also he cites Jung, of course, and the archetypes of the collective unconscious. And he makes a comparison with elementary ideas, universal ideas that we all share in the depths of our unconscious, okay? So people go there and look for it if you haven't watched before, okay? So I just 3 or 4 PowerPoints that we have already seen the previous meetings, just so we can reason a little bit and remember. And in this book that it's not translated yet, The Awakening of the Spirit, from 2000, Joanna says that the human being is a complexity of transcendent values. And I know some people have asked a question about that, right, Fabricio? That we decided to discuss a little bit. That was a very interesting question in the WhatsApp group, so we can discuss after this PowerPoint presentation. But look what Jonah says, that the human being is a complexity of transcendent values. So when she's talking about transcendent values, people, it's not values, okay, from the ego and from this moment here in space and time. She's talking about values that transcend the ego, okay? That are like related to the higher self, Jung self, capital S, that Joanna says is our spirit, okay? And she's saying that we are a complexity of these transcendent values that blend together in depth, having their roots in the inexhaustible sources of cosmic life. I wanted to show again this PowerPoint because I know we understand. And remember that in our first meeting from this year, last meeting, I told you to try to read and to try to think of what Joanna is talking about, not only with your mind, but especially with the knowledge of your heart, because it's in the heart that we have actually the wisdom that we have brought to this life from previous life, because the mind can be influenced by, cultural stuff, by our personality here, our ego and its complexes related to the ego, the inner child, the daughter, the son, the father and mother, all these experiences that we kind of restart when we incarnate in this experience. So the ego can get, like a lot of people talk inside of us with an attention pretty much in the outside world because it's trying to adapt to this world. So it can, and actually probably for many, many people, until the middle of our existence here, middle age, the ego is not preoccupied or paying any attention, let's say, usually, to the self, to what's coming to the self, really paying attention, you know. But what happens is that from the middle age to on, you know, until we really get to the age of when we have experienced a lot of stuff in life and we are kind of adapt to life. So then it's like the ego starts, wow, there is an inner voice. There are things like synchronicity happening in my life. There are messages coming from my dreams. Who is talking? From where all this knowledge comes, you know? Who is talking inside of me, not only outside of me, right? At least felt as outside by the ego. So that's so, so important. I cannot express how important it is that we pay attention to this first sentence that John is saying. The human being is a complexity of transcendent values. They come with us to this life that blend together in depth, not in the personal unconscious usually, but in depth, having their roots in the inexhaustible sources of cosmic life. So we are like drinking, if we could say, being nurtured by the inexhaustible sources of cosmic life. Let's think of ourselves also like a tree, for instance. We want to reach the skies, but we are having to have our roots deep inside earth, okay, in this life. So, and also we can see, because we are learning when we are here, but also because in Mother Earth and in this experience so precious, this experience here in the body. We learned so much, and we are going to be seeing more of that. What Joanna talks about that. So we can think of these values that we live here and we kind of remember in this existence because we are challenged by, you know, our experiences here. And then we kind of remember this inexhaustible values that come from within, from the depths of our psyche, of our unconscious, that connect us with the source of cosmic life. Only that. See how important each one of us, how precious we are. So Joanna says that any attempt to reduce he or she to merely organic equipment under the control of the brain neurons, as unfortunately so many of my colleagues still do to this day, does not achieve the objectives indispensable to understanding his/her reality. A vision, however, more appropriate for an analysis of the human being is that which arises from the three-dimensional being, as established by Allan Kardec: spirit, thinking energy, perispirit and matter, so the subtle body and the organic and the matter, as so mental verbal constructions and actions transit from one to another vibratory fields, because this only these three, and we have more bodies connected, and you know, more sub bodies, we could say, within these structures, but not so that it's not complicated. We can think of these three, okay? The thinking energy, the spirit, the perispirit, the subtle body, and the organic body, the matter. And what is going on, what transits among them. So our mental, verbal constructions and actions transit from one to another vibratory field because they vibrate differently, of differentiated structure, inscribing in the organic, emotional, and mental equipment the inevitable results arising from them. So everything that we think, that we feel, that every action that we decided to take, all of our actions have consequences, right? They have some information. We can think of quantum physics, for instance, and then vibrate in a certain way. And they are going to transit from our different bodies, leaving different inscribing, actually, Joanna is saying, in these different bodies, the inevitable results, okay, that arise from them. So knowledge of the spirit is the basic reality of organic existence, the basic reality, the foundation of the organic existence, okay, as the basic reality of organic existence, enables the understanding of the objectives that must be sought during the carnal experience, a necessary stage in the process of evolution, through which the seeds of wisdom and love that are present within it blossom. I have heard people, so many YouTube channels in English and Portuguese. I know a little bit about French, but not enough to understand all. And of Spanish, of course, we understand, we Brazilians understand a lot of Spanish. But what I feel that is missing, like a puzzle, some pieces of the puzzle from, I have been researching, I told you about that. So I've seen great people, scholars talking about this shift of consciousness. What are we doing here? What's going on with humanity? And what I think they miss is this knowledge that the Spiritist knowledge is bringing to us, of course, in another spiritual traditions too. But why do we reincarnate? People talk a lot about that we are in a simulation game of Matrix. I love the movie, but let's the movie is like symbolic, okay? So we are in a simulation game. We are in the Matrix, and who has put us here? And then a lot of hypotheses in some very science fiction like. But Joanna is telling us, and we have been blessed that if we are here, we are listening to this with our hearts, and it makes sense. You connect. If it's not going to make sense, right, Fabrizio? People are going to get out of the WhatsApp group, or we'll just close the. I don't want to listen to anything. It's okay. It's okay. Because any one of us, each one of us actually has a time to awaken, and it's going to happen in a very specific way. It's individual. We cannot give. We can just share. And it has to make sense to the person in their hearts. If it doesn't make sense, doesn't matter. Everybody has a self. We all share our collective unconscious, and people are going to awake eventually through some image, some knowledge specific to their soul that can talk to their soul. So it doesn't matter. But what I think for those that are here, that are listening to this, and it makes sense to your heart, please pay attention to what this wonderful light teacher is trying to tell us, that the knowledge of the Spirit as the basic reality, we have to stand in some grounds if the world is shaking under our feet, right? And metaphorically, it is all over the globe. There's no place, because it's a globalized world, and we have the instant connection with the internet. So we know crazy and wonderful, actually, things also that are going on around the world. So sometimes people, what is going on with humanity, with the world? And we have to have a ground that we can some knowledge, some connection that we can feel, okay, the world, maybe it's kind of crazy in this moment, but if I silence my ego and my complexes, and if I pay attention to this inner voice and to the images and to the message that are coming through, my higher self, then I will, even in the midst of, wars, fights, riots, whatever, I will find my peace, because this peace is not of this world, of this material world, not yet. It's going to be pretty soon, but not yet. We have to first feel the peace inside of us, and then we have to express in the world. And when we have enough people doing that, then okay, we have shifted the regenerated world, as we say in the Spiritist knowledge. So Joanna is saying the knowledge of the Spirit is this basic reality of this organic existence. This knowledge is within each one of us, and it enables the understanding of the objectives that must be sought in this experience. Okay, that's the purpose, people. That's the meaning why we are here. And this existence is a necessary stage in the process of evolution. What is so difficult about that? Why do we have to think that we are in a simulation and in a video game like whatever, and in a matrix that some being has prepared for us? It's basic. That's the a light teacher talking about decades of experience by Divaldo Franco with his wonderful world in Bahia, right, Fabrício? Mansão do Caminho. So how do we build that kind of, among, poor people with no material resources? How did Divaldo was able to create that small city full of light, full of love and help and caring for each other in the middle of something so hard, a reality so hard, because he was in contact with light teachers such as Joanna. And he didn't have, as said in Face to Face, when he is asked, do you believe in God? And he stops and he says, believe? I don't believe, I know. That's his answer. You can put in the YouTube, there's all, the movie, the Face to Face. So it's like, if we believe, we are still struggling. But faith is not believing. Faith is wisdom from the heart, right? So Divaldo developed this faith. So he had a direct connection with Joanna and other light teachers. So everything is possible. And mediums such as Divaldo, such as Chico Xavier, are a testimony of that, and so many wonderful mediums all around the globe, right? So that's the purpose that we are here. This is a stage in the process of our evolution, through which the seeds of wisdom and love that are present within it blossom, right? So I'm just in the end, some PowerPoints from the previous meetings so that we can understand better, and because we can discuss later when I finish here. So in finding peace and health that you can find in Amazon, according to Fabrício, Joanna says that it's from 2007. Every evolutionary process in its most varied aspects suffers periodical crises resulting from the need to evaluate the methodology, the methods employed, making room for new practices and different approaches. We are all going to make mistakes, of course, because it's an evolutionary process, and we need this crisis, let's say, so that we can get in contact. Wow, this doesn't sound right. I have been mistaken here. I didn't made a nice move. I didn't act. Something in my heart is telling me that I was not okay. I was not truthful to what I feel inside of me. So let me evaluate better what happened here, right? And she says, just as a crisis appears as privation, struggle, and transformation, it also provides new paths and concepts in keeping with the ethical, moral, and social structures of the times, because they vary from times to times. So the modern world experiences a crisis of values, we all know that, but is also undergoing an internal convulsion, as does the society that inhabits it, resulting from the convulsions experienced by its members. As from within, it happens outside of us, right? So humans derived from humus, meaning fertile soil, are also in turmoil, discovering that everything around them suffers the effects of that disturbance, perhaps necessary at the moment for new concepts and behaviors to emerge. So while human beings fight each other, controlled by the dubious interests on which they depend, cooperation and not competition is to be found everywhere in the universe. Society is a whole that should be harmonious, but prejudice born of selfishness and arrogance has divided it into ethnic, social, racial, cultural, behavioral, and religious groups. All this is the result of the moral crisis assailing modern men and women who, having already understood, those who haven't, okay, to be lost, but those who have already understood planetary dynamics remain indifferent to the consequences. Should pay attention, right, people? It is as if they have no interest in the future, thinking that they will not be be a part of it anyway. But this is a materialist delusion, Joanna says, according to which death is the end of life, forgetting the laws of progress and cause and effect, in force everywhere, whereby the return to the evolutionary path through reincarnation is inevitable because of ourselves. So Joanna says existential, when she's talking about existential crisis, the human psyche is almost as old as the universe, almost. Since the time of creation, the psyche began to form under the command of the divine mind. And remember the first one, that's why the roots are very deep in the cosmic source, and our values are related to this divine mind or cosmic source of creation. Advancing by means of natural process through the expressions of the cosmos, it reached the human stage, preserving all of its ancestral experiences that are the foundation of its modern achievements. Nevertheless, residuals remain, creating resistance to assimilating new impulses to reflect and grow. An existential crisis is a way to break with the past, with some of those residuals, enabling new intellectual and emotional investments so that other levels of support may emerge for the attainment of more complex forms of harmony. Human beings have a depth that must be penetrated, moving past the superficiality, of everyday life in search of the authentic qualities that make them different from other animals, right? Okay, now what you have already read, and those who haven't, it's a great text and chapter that, and it's Fabricio has put in the WhatsApp group. So that's just a summary. So it's not translated to Portuguese, and it was translated, right, Fabricio, like the Integral Man, but since it's from 1990, I just put the integral human being because we are talking It's more modern. We are talking about all of us, of course, as she was talking in the past. It's just like to be more modern. And she starts this chapter, sorry, talking about the World Health Organization, what we call WHO, and its definition of health. And of course, she's saying that the definition, you can just go in the site of the World Health Organization, look for it. But I just put here in this PowerPoint, health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. And this is from the World Health Organization. In a period of transition, sorry, this is Joanna saying, back to the tasks. In a period of transition and abrupt change in the scale of conventional values, accompanied by inevitable excesses that lead to anarchy, health is often replaced by emotional conflicts, organic disorders, and economic difficulties, which in turn give rise to complex pathologies in the individual. Of course, because remember in the previous, health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not so much to do with infirmity and disease. And Joanna is saying exactly, pay attention what she's asking us to focus in this period of transition that we are undergoing in these decades. An abrupt change of this scale of conventional values, accompanied by inevitable excesses, because always when we are in a crisis, we kind of it's like from the human psyche, we kind of do like sometimes we go to one side, sometimes we go to the other side until we find our own balance, right? Of things, I mean, sorry. And she says that it's inevitable that it's going to lead to some kind of anarchy. And health, of course, then it's often replaced by emotional conflicts, organic disorders, and economic difficulties, because all of this is unbalanced now, which in turn give rise to complex pathologies in the individual. So back to the World Health Organization, when they talk about mental health, this is in their site, you can go and look. Mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual realizes his or her own abilities, realizes we need a strong ego, can cope with the normal stresses of life. Of course, we are going to ask me, well, but when we are undergoing an uncommon stress, we can talk about this in the discussion later. So back to the World Health Organization. So mental health we are talking about. So we realize our own abilities. We cope with the normal stresses of life. We are able to cope with them. We can work productively and also be able to make a contribution to our own community. Okay, mental health, according to who? Mental health, they say, is fundamental to our collective and individual ability as humans to think, emote, interact with each other, earn a living, and enjoy life. We can question what is enjoying life, and Joanne is going to question that. On this basis, the promotion, protection, and restoration of mental health can be regarded as a vital concern of individuals, communities, and societies throughout the world. That's why you can understand Joanna is talking about health, mental health, and this importance of, the connecting spiritist psychology to everything that we know about our psyche. So the World Health Organization recognized the mental health that mental health is influenced by many factors, including spirituality, and that it's essential to promote and protect mental health. This Joanna doesn't say because this is her text was from that Divaldo psychograph. Remember, it's from 1990, and the WHO, what we say, it's like a report of quality of life, QOL, okay, WHO call, we say. It's from 1998. And for instance, here and all around the globe for psychiatrists in medicine school and also psychologists, there were teams researching and validating this report by the World Health Organization, because to be worldwide, it has to be validated, to be okay for the whole world. So we have to do research and validate with a clinical significant population and general population. So that's from 1998, when the World Health Organization talks about spirituality and includes it in quality of life assessment. And research, I've put here, that's not in Joanna's text. Researchers indicate that spirituality can be important for people with mental illness, dementia, or head injury. This is from many different research that my colleagues and I have been doing for the past 30 years at least. And this is just a summary that you can find in the internet. It can be especially important during times of stress, loss, or bereavement. Beliefs and spirituality can be important when considering treatments or interventions. And spirituality can be seen as a journey, and experiences can help people learn and develop, okay? People that develop spirituality. So back to Joanna, the human being insists on ignoring himself or herself. She takes on contradictory attitudes, displaying strange behaviors. She prefers to let events take their sometimes disastrous course rather than guide them consciously, rather than be the captain of your own ship. So surprised, however, by illness and death, she awakens frightened, having not truly, and I think Joanna here is talking about the spiritual dimensions, very near to ours, having not truly lived, feeling alienated from himself or herself, and discovering too late sometimes that she never truly knew himself or herself. She was a stranger throughout her existence, including to himself herself. Health, however, makes her participatory as an active member of the social group, awake and responsible in the struggle that enriches her with beauty and joy. It allows her to assume positions of vigor and inner security, which serve as a reward to the effort made. And then I've put we, okay, in this sentence by Joanna. When we stop running away from our reality, we discover ourselves and work to reach more lucid states in emotional and personal development. But here, I think Joanna, of course, is talking about our inner reality, okay? Not the way that we present ourselves to others. And I've just put here from Alchemic Studies, it's in collected work 13 from Carl Gustav Jung, his sentence, just for us to see how Jung agrees with Joanna and vice versa. A man who is unconscious of himself acts in a blind, instinctive way, and is in addition fooled by all the illusions that arise when he sees everything that he is not conscious of in himself coming to meet him from outside as projections upon his neighbor. So when we do wars, when we think that we're in a simulation that some whoever or whatever being has put us on, and what are we doing here in this crazy moment of humanity? We are projecting our own fears and our own, let's say, ignorance and our own denial of this inner voice, actually, of this impulse that we all have towards a higher consciousness, that our higher self is trying to call the ego, our, let's say, as Jung says, the small personality, to pay attention to. So I think this sentence by Jung was, it's very important because it's saying exactly the same thing that Joanna is saying, that when we are unconscious of ourselves, we are blind to our own inner reality. We fool ourselves and we kind of fall in this illusion that wow, the shadow or the bad thing is coming from outside of us and not, it's like a disempowerment actually, because oh, it's so comforting sometimes if we don't want to pay attention to ourselves, to our inner voice. If I feel that everybody outside has gone crazy and that the shadow is outside, that's the crazy guys that, you know, are in whatever government are all crazy and that I don't have anything to do with that. And then I keep projecting, and this is going to go on happening because I can only change things when I really reconnect to my inner, to my inner voice, to my higher self, and find this strength within myself and lose fear, people. Because when I lose fear and I understand myself as an immortal being, what do I have to fear about? Then I'll go on trying to, you know, make some difference and try to help my brothers and sisters, right? So Joanna says that about neurotic behaviors, that products of the deep unconscious manifesting as neurotic behaviors, psychogenic factors have their roots in the patient's own behavior in past reincarnations. So this is something new that Jung doesn't say like that, okay? It's Joanna and other light teachers that are bringing to us this knowledge, in which they become internally out of balance from past lives. Had it been through conflicts of conscience or the consequences of ignoble actions, the mechanisms that facilitate personal rehabilitation imprint on the current unconscious that they come to us, with us actually, these mechanisms that facilitate our rehabilitation. They are imprinted. Remember the subtle body, you know, and our also spiritual, the thinking energy, our spirit, okay? So they are going to know that, oops, I'm mistaken, and this has caused me a moral crisis, like moral more to do with our higher self than with the ego that we are talking about. This that get imprinted, okay, in our psyche, in our current unconscious as matrices, she says, that are externalized as, of course, because then the ego gets, wow, what's this that is coming from inside of myself? So if the ego is not very strong and mature, as John is trying to help us be at this exactly moment, right? Then we can dissociate, we can have fragmentations of the personality, we can have even psychotic breakdowns, hallucination, and psychosis, okay? So psychological health stems from self-awareness, inner liberation, and the proper perspective one must maintain regarding life and its its ethical, emotional, and human needs. The neurotic, frightening, and predominant behavior in consumerist society tries to conceal the maladjustment and phobias of contemporary man who sinks into pathological mechanism. Because if I have to understand myself, if I have to find, to identify these matrices that are active in my psyche now at this moment, so that I can work with my own shadows, fears, and etc. Okay, and integrate them and get stronger, more mature with my steps towards evolution, more firm. What do I have to do, right? So I have to understand um, that outside society being so materialistic and calling us all the time to achieve stuff it's of course this kind of behavior is going to take us out from the homework that we would all need all to be doing, that is paying attention to the inside, not to the outside in this sense, okay? So Joanna says, fearing to be himself, or herself, but I'm just going to read as she wrote. Fearing to be himself, he becomes a mirror person, Joanna calls, reflecting the conveniences of others. Remember the persona, the complex of the persona, opposed to the shadow. So we get to be a mirror person, reflecting the conveniences of others, or a wall man, she says, reacting against all vibrations aimed at us, right? Before examining them. And then she says, attacking first, avoiding being attacked. Attacking first, avoiding being attacked, is the philosophy of the weak who shut themselves in a tight circle of fears and non-acceptance by others, a neurotic way of masking the non-acceptance of oneself. Rare are those who prefer to be bridgemen, she says, and women, of course, positioned between extremes to help facilitate traffic and rescue in the essential abysses. So remember that if we are in one side of whatever and totally close to the other side of whatever, we are not being men and women, bridge men and women, helping these extremes to be balanced. That's so, so important to realize. So the prevailing spirit of neurotic competition in the material world that we are right now, established as a promoter of wealth, must give way to that of cooperation, responsible for solidarity and peace, humanizing society and making people well identified with themselves, she means. So the balanced action man, when we do a balanced action, generates the factors of his own development, abandoning neurotic conformism in order to command destiny that is always malleable to new and motivated influences. Humans have their matrices in nature, with which they must maintain. Remember that Jung says that psyche belongs to nature, is part of the nature. So Joanna says that humans have their matrices in nature with which they must maintain a healthy relationship rather than avoid it. Being constituted parts of nature, they should not alienate themselves. Instead, they should seek its cooperation and assist it in an exchange of vigorous energies. In doing so, they will come out of the private cage where they hide and protect themselves. And when she talks about physical and mental illnesses, we are going to the end so that we can discuss. Consciousness in its reality is an extra physical factor, not produced by the brain, for it possesses the elements that take shape in the form necessary for its externalization. It's the same thing. It's a complicated way, but Joanna wants us to understand that consciousness in itself, remember, thinking energy, when incarnates, it's not, of course, produced by the brain. It incarnates and it uses the brain to expresses itself, to be here and in this interrelational world and learn and experience with it. So, if, of course, consciousness in this sense possesses the elements that take shape in the form necessary for its externalization. So everything that is imprinted in the consciousness, the higher consciousness, and that needs to be manifest in this world will be manifest in the material part of our being when we incarnate here. That's what she means, okay? This thinking energy, pre-existing and surviving the body, evolves through reincarnation experiences, which form a process of gaining knowledge and feelings until it attains wisdom. Don't we all want wisdom, especially from our hearts, that we can take with us when we leave this material world? Consequently, it becomes its own here, using the resources it accumulates and should invest for more advanced achievements step by step. For this reason, we can repeat that there are illnesses only because there are sick people, Joanna says. That is, illness is an effect of deep disturbances in the field of the thinking energy of the spirit, or spirit, sorry. So illnesses, in the root of all our illnesses, is a deep disturbance in the field of the thinking energy. Its resistance or organic deficiencies result from the processes of molecular organization of the equipment it employs, produced by the action of the thinking energy, the spirit, and its necessities, what we came here karmically to experience. The psychosoma, the subtle body, organizes the soma, the organic body, the soma necessary for the journey, brief in time, to the spiritual individuality. Organic diseases take root as a result of the karmic needs inherent to them, calling the being to reflect and engage in moral transformation, both of which foster rebalancing. In congenital pathologies, the psychosoma imposes the necessary karmic modeling factors for evolution under imperatives that prevent, through the limits of difficult pressures of circumstances, the recurrence of moral failure. So any equipment to function in harmony and with precision for the purposes for which it is intended requires the perfect efficiency of all the parts that make it up. So likewise, organic machinery depends on the ebb and flow of psychic energy, which in turn depends on responses of the various parts it actuates. In this interdependence, a person's mental vibration either fosters balance or dystonia, consciously or unconsciously. In its essence, the thinking energy possesses the divine resources that it must externalize. To this end, similar to a seed, it is only when subjected to germination that it enables the emergence of its extraordinary elements previously dormant. A balanced mind will command the body in harmony, and this, in exchange, ideal health will emerge. So finalizing when the modern human beings begin to consider their own immortality in light of the fleeting experience of the soma, they will embark on the fulfilling journey of working towards lasting projects at the expense of temporary illusions, observing the future and living it from now on, committed to the program of their spiritual awareness, the model of realization of a whole being will then be inscribed in them, free from the fear of life and death, of shadow and light, of the transient and permanent, of appearance and reality. And I brought to you, but I'm not showing now the end of that story that I told you about in the previous meeting, but we want to debate. And if we don't have time, I'll stop share now. I will just show in next meeting. So everybody that wants to know the end of the story, come again in the next meeting. Okay? So I think we have some time. At least I thought, Fabricio, because it's a lot of questions that I know people did. That's why I wanted to talk a little bit more about what we have told in the first, Joanna had told us in the first meeting, so that we can have answer a little bit the questions. Maybe 15 minutes now and 15 minutes to the second, if people are all right. So we are still recording for questions, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any question? Anyone, please raise your hand with the Zoom so that we can call in for the question.
I don't know if the person who asked the question in the WhatsApp group is present or if the answer is okay. Would you like to read, Fabricio, the question or want me to read?
Yeah, I think it's Deborah who asked the question, right, Deborah? Donna, say the question again.
Yes, Fabrizio. Yes, thank you. Sorry, thank you, Anahy. Well, I think I remember it properly, but we were discussing, about the, this whole thing about mythologies, and this whole, like, you brought up very important things. And at a specific moment, I was wondering if, as like spiritual beings, and if we are this compound of the transcendental values, and if we are, like in earth to learn new values, right? So where do we kind of like get or learn this new value? So I was wondering if it's one of the sources of this this place where we can develop or get or be inspired would be the unconscious collective. But I'm not sure if it makes sense or not. It was just like something that came up in the last session. And again, I think, well, not sure if it's also related to this one, because again, today, while you're like talking at the very last of your talking about the illness, it was you brought up this thinking, they think about like the thinking energy, right? So the illnesses, they are disturbances in the thinking energy. So again, I was like, is there any kind of connections? Because again, everything is on our, everything is in our thoughts, but it's a lot of like immaterial things, and it's a lot about like how we think, because it's all about like values. But how do we kind of like think properly? How do we kind of like direct our thoughts to kind of like develop these new values that we need to develop in order to, regenerate ourselves and get healthier, or, something like that. So I'm not sure if it makes any sense. It's just like a lot of like different thoughts as well.
Totally, totally. Thank you. It's a wonderful question, Deborah. And well, what I have put in the WhatsApp group, so that if people haven't read, is that because you are asking about the values, right? That Joanna talks about, right? These values that we can find, she says, in the depths of our psyche. And I would say that we are here both from what we have been, and please help me here if people have understood other things or have had other insights, because we are at this precious moment growing together and connecting together. So the self, capital S, our higher selves are present here at this moment. And everybody has its own wisdom coming from the self that are interconnected, okay? It doesn't matter space and time in this point. So what happens, I think, it's that there is Joanna is asking us from different manners, if we pay attention to her teachings, to remember that we are spirits, as she says in this chapter, thinking energy, right? And if we are spirits, thinking energy, and we reincarnate many, many times, and we have been all around different worlds, and who knows? Well, each one of us knows in the depths of the psyche, but at this point we cannot quite remember, right? But so we have these values that we bring with us. So I would say, Deborah, that we are here to, in terms of these values, to two things at least. One would be to express these values because they are here with us. They are not in another dimension, right? So all the learning, okay, we forget a lot of stuff when we incarnate. And remember, people, because we research children that remember past lives. We have been talking about that. The psychiatrist, I will remember, Fabricio, if you remember the guy, the North American, at this moment, because I'm paying attention, that's my feeling function.
Stevenson.
Yes, thank you, Sylvia Stevenson, Jan Stevenson, that has studied so many children, especially from the East, from eastern part of the world that remember past lives. And we know many people all around the world, have children saying things. But if the culture, let's not pay attention because this can be the beginning of psychosis, or this child is strange. Let's not pay attention. Let's take to a psychologist. So what's going to happen is that memory that is coming with the child, because the ego is not structured enough yet, is going to get lost. But at some point, if needed be, it's going to resurface. We know that in different ways, okay? And what is important is that these values that we already have, spiritual, high values, one is talking about, we are supposed to remember that we have this inner voice, this higher self, higher consciousness, that it's not only a thing that it remembers the values, because the values are part of the thinking energy. So we just have to manifest, to trust the process of manifesting our inner values. But if we are, as in this chapter that we have all read, with our attention focused on the outside world and in materialistic life all the time, how can we do this process of expressing these inner values that we already have, because it's experiences that we have already undergone and that we know, in our hearts, not only in our spiritual knowledge, let's say minds or psyche. But the thing is that, so I think it's expression of these values that we are supposed to be doing. And the second thing is, as Deborah said, of learning new values, because I'm always practicing and learning. We are learning with each other here, right? We are learning, for instance, you guys are learning. For the ones that don't have enough, you are learning a lot of patience, right, Fabrizio? Because you have to wait for the text, the translation. I'm trying to rush through very deep teachings and trying to summarize for people that cannot read, for instance, because they are going to be watching this many months from now, or were not in the WhatsApp group, or going to access Fabrizio's YouTube channel, Burma Society, Fabrizio Spirit Center channel. So I'm trying to summarize. Then For instance, patience is a spiritual value, right? I'm just joking, but I'm being serious at the same time. Go ahead, Fabrizio, help me here.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Some of you, it's actually part of my study group that we study in heaven and hell. And our last meeting was very interesting because we were studying about that. Um, the awakening of the spirit, right? And why our morals are so twisted nowadays. And the discussion in the group, we were saying, because if you look nowadays in the world that we're living in, we are bombarded by so many things, so many values that is very twisted, very distorted, and move us away from our spiritual reality. They want us to be more capitalist. They want us to be more competitive. They want us to be more individualist. They basically the society that we live in is constantly is bombarding us with values, which is completely the opposite of the spiritual values. And if we are too absorbed by this society and we start living the values, they are totally impregnate all over in the social media, on the mediums, on the television, through conversations, we get confused. And then we forget that we are not here to live those material values. We are here to develop our spiritual values. And that is the importance of us to be always connected, what actually bring us the awakening of our spiritual values. For instance, this study group is one of the way. Us reading a defined book is a different way. Us praying, us meditating, us taking some time away and not be totally immersed on the society that we're living in are ways of us waking our spirits. And I found it interesting the discussion because we had some people here now in this group. They are also part of my group on Mondays. They have and hell study. They can maybe complement what I have discussed here, but we need to be perhaps aware and pay attention more. How are we spending our days? Are we giving too much importance what is material and leave what the values that of material impregnate on us, or are you actually starting open ourselves up to other values that's more spiritual? That is what I would like to hear from the group.
Wow, that's great. That's great. And before, I know that the group is thinking, and some of you are going to raise your hands pretty quickly, but I just wanted to say it's exactly, you see how we are vibrating and remember things together. And Deborah has asked, how do we think properly? I think this is so interesting because I keep, because of, I use myself as an example. Remember there in the first year, right, Fabricio, that we have seen a lot of Jung's concepts, and we talk about his psychological types. You can go there and watch, it's all recorded in the YouTube channel. So, how do we think properly? And for instance, I am, okay, extroverted feeling function. So remember, so my thinking process is introverted and it comes in the unconscious, through the unconscious, especially, just for you to guys to, so that we can make a point here. So I'm always thinking, Deborah, how can I think proper? I asked Joanna, you don't know, guys, the time I spent preparing the PowerPoint, right? Because of my feeling function. Wow, how are they going to feel that? Joanna, please help me. Which sentence is more important? And this goes on, and I lose myself in that image. Wow, that's so cool. Well, then I would be here talking to you like 3 hours. And so what I wanted to tell you is that how we think properly. I think that's spoiler alert, okay? Spoiler alert. I'm not going to say what's going to happen, but for those who are going to be able to be in the Congress in September, right, Fabricio? with us. We are going to do exercises, kind of cool activities about that. How do we think properly? But one thing I can tell you, go, for instance, in the morning when you are looking yourself in the mirror, combing your hair or whatever you're doing, ask yourself, is that who I am? Just ask yourself. Okay. Next meeting, we can see what you have thought about, because we keep forgetting who we are, and we keep, as Fabrizio have just said, has just said. So we keep thinking from values from outside of us. In this time of social media, a lot of silly things, very, very silly, being posted, and oh, this is so wonderful, I'm doing this and that. I don't know. Are you happy in doing this and that? If you are happy, great. And why do you have to post? Why do you have to have likes? If you are happy, I'm in peace with myself. If I have to put in the whatever social media, think again if you are really happy or what's going to make you happy. But I think that's a great exercise, Deborah, to look at ourselves in the mirror, and especially look, the first look, and then the look that you look inside your own eyes. And let's see next meeting. Let's keep this question, but I think it's so wonderful. How do we think properly? If you can put Fabrizio in the WhatsApp group, I think it's a great question that we are going to be answering together.
Yeah.
Victoria, I think you want to.
Just before Victoria say something, what came to my mind also, and Kardec said that it was a question, and he said, "How do you define a good spiritist?" And he said, "The good spiritists are the one that make an effort to combat their bad inclinations." So again, I think you could use that concept and apply to ourselves. How much do we want to insist on our materialism and still not embrace the new moral values, right? Or do we want to combat or make an effort to combat those bad inclinations, which is selfishness and pride, and start to exercise and awaken our spiritual all those new values, right? So we need to make the effort, right? And how much we are actually wanting to make the effort. And remember, before we were incarnated, we kind making a commitment to come here, right? And review all of our approach to our spiritual being, right? And do you want to go back there the same way we came, or do you want to get ourselves a little bit better, embrace more of these new values, and learn a little more, expand our conscience, and involve spiritually? That is a question that we can always ask ourselves, right?
That's great. And I just wanted to say there are two questions. Should we stop recording, Vittoria and Gabriele, or you want the recording going on? I don't know, Fabrice, because we have now some minutes. If the persons that are with the hands raised would like, we can stop recording now, I think.
Okay. Let
Yes?
me just.
Okay.
Okay. So we will say goodbye now to the recording, and thanks for watching us.